So here's where I invite you to join me in practice, and we'll have some opportunities for interaction at this phase of our journey together. So Brad, given your chat there, are you okay for me to continue in here?
When something good is happening, I say let's keep that good thing going.
That sounds good to me too. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Yeah, I'm catching a few of the notes here in the chat, and I love this perspective, John. You bring in time, and I think that it's so important to recognize that it can really take a long time. You're absolutely right. This is not a right. Sometimes I teach therapists often, and I train for therapists, and some therapists say, well, I work in a model where I'm given 6 sessions to work with a client, and it just makes me so sad, because we can get a little bit done in a short period of time, but we really are talking about a long-term commitment to ourselves, to our own personal journey of healing, and that is really important to hold, as Cully just put in the chat here. Patience, right? Patience with this journey. It is often not linear either. Even here in what we think of as the phases of trauma recovery, that we initially start with cultivating resources and our resources. And that's what, ultimately helps us do the deeper dive and work through something painful, work through a traumatic event. And then we come out into that reintegration and maybe an action phase in the world. But that can occur inside of a single session. It can be the entire arc of therapy. And we often have many rounds through those 3 phases. So trauma recovery and grief are by all means not linear. So this practice that I'm going to invite you in this next phase of our journey is to help you gather your resources, to, even for a moment, just to identify in your current space something that you perhaps honed in on earlier that would help you feel supported, grounded, present for this experience, this gathering that we have. It might be a cue of safety or connection in your environment. It might be, a feeling of connection to the other people that are here that's happening through the chat, or when we can see each other in that gallery view, right? And to recognize that it's here in the present moment where growth happens. So very often we can reflect on the past, we can plan for the future, but what we're doing right here in this moment is where transformation occurs. So for this practice, and some of you came in a little bit later than our start time. So if that's the case, we invited you to grab a blank piece of paper, some colored markers or pens. We're going to do just a little creative journey together. So taking something that maybe will allow you to explore this for yourself. And you can see my personal drawing here. It's messy. We get to be a little messy in a creative process. That's okay. I'll explain to you what you're looking at and what I'll kind of guide you through these steps. So we're going to create and I'll invite you to take your blank piece of paper, whatever size it is, and create a kind of broad sketch of a tree. Have the trunk be wide enough to write some things in it. Let there be roots with space around it for the ground. Let there be branches that can reach out from the tree that, again, have some room for you to write in. And I'll toggle between this slide and the next one for a moment. So one thing I'd like you to notice before I leave this slide is right here on the right side of the tree is what I'm calling the compost heap, or the compost bin. And we're going to give this bin a lid. And inside of the compost bin, I would invite you to write in the things that are challenging or have been challenging in your life. And it's going to give it a form of a container. It's going to allow this to be held and kind of safely held for this next practice, so that if there's a lot going on, whether it's your own history, whether it's acute grief and loss, whether it's the pandemic itself and other events that are happening across this last year and a half, whatever is kind of weighing heavy on your heart, I'd like you to take it out of your heart and put it in this compost bin for a little bit. And this compost heap, which is the box to the side of your tree, it's going to be here to break down the yuck, so you can use it for your growth. Within this box, you can write down any traumatic events, experiences of abuse, if that's in your history, times when you were neglected or rejected, any challenging relational experiences. And be sure to give your compost box a lid. Know that you can contain these events in this space, right? A container in trauma work is a very special skill. We put something in there because trauma takes the lid off of our container. It's uprooting. It feels like we get flooded. So we give a container to hold the difficult stuff until right time, right place, right support. And it's good to know that you don't want to be processing your trauma when you're trying to raise your kids or sleep at night or go grocery shopping, right? We want to take out and work through traumatic material, even if it's the ongoing experience of a pandemic, when we have right place, right support. And until then, let it be held. And sometimes even in the dark of the compost heap, even in that container, some transformation begins to happen. So we don't actively always have to be pulling it out in order to grow and change. Now, of course, there are times when we do need to pull out some of that disturbance and really attend to it. And that's an agreement that you make with your psyche, that you'll do that in its right time. The roots of your tree are going to represent your sources of strength. So within these roots, take some time to write down any positive influences from your life. And this can be, again, like family roots, sources of pride. Maybe it's your hometown or your country or your ancestry. Maybe it's cultural resources, rites of passage, spiritual or influential mentors, other positive family legacies. Right? Stories of ancestors who were courageous or who overcame challenges. So again, you can kind of, put in here whatever feels resonant with that theme for you. And you're welcome to use the chat in this. If you're like, oh my gosh, this is, like, here's one of my roots, share it with us. We'll feel it together. It's powerful to do this in community. It's right. Like you can do this, in your own space, which I'm guiding you to do, but it's really powerful to say like my roots are right. For me, I'm Jewish and I feel really connected to that part of my family history. It may not be so much my active spiritual practice, but I feel it in my bones. Right. And I can feel the way that my grandparents and their commitment to work through challenges has informed me. Right now, there's other ancestral, legacies that are hard, and those can go into the compost bin until right time, right place. But really finding those sources of pride. Right, so I see farming and community roots, beautiful. So it might be connecting to land, right? Like literally, where do your roots go? And this is going to tie us right into the next one. So I actually want to kind of interweave roots and ground together, because the roots can also be intertwined with the ground, which is going to represent some of your current sources of nourishment, self-care that you do on a regular basis to help you stay healthy. Time outside, mindfulness, healthy nutrition, exercise routines, creative endeavors. So our roots might be, kind of like what we tap into, and the ground is where we're going to draw that source of nourishment into our roots, into our tree. And it doesn't matter if you're like, oh, I put my ground in my roots. Doesn't matter. It's all good. It's all good, right? My roots are in my family business. It's a funeral home, which became a healing community. That's super beautiful, Julia. Thank you, right? It's just, there's so much dance and movement. Lesbianism, beautiful, beautiful. Rivers and warm weather, right? So like the communities that you connect to, right? It might be your, it might be, within your family, it might be outside of your family, it might be family of choice. So I'll keep going here. Feel free to keep using the chat if you would like. So the trunk represents anything that keeps you upright, keeps you standing tall. right? Inside of the trunk is a good place to write down your values, your skills. And, I'll go back to my tree for a moment, and then I'm going to read you through some of that list there. But, when you're living in alignment with your values, some of mine are integrity, kindness, gratitude, right? I love teaching. You guys get that feeling from me, right? Like I'm living in alignment with my values. I like speaking from the heart. I'm a caring mom and a loving wife. And so some of those are, personal values. So when we're exploring what are the values, we can also identify, am I living in alignment with the values? Because that's what's going to really give you that upright feeling. And so some of the examples I've listed here are open-mindedness, humility, integrity, honesty, bravery, leadership, lifelong learning. You're all doing that tonight. Acting fairly, kindness, forgiving others, social responsibility, caring for others. And I would love it if you would put one of your values in that chat, right? It's up to you if you want to do that, but it's really powerful, because what I find often when I'm leading groups is when any one of us names one of our values, someone else is like, oh yeah, I want that one too, right? Vulnerability. And someone else writes vulnerability, probably they typed it at the same time. Authentic connection, yes. Self-care, acceptance, truthfulness. I'm just reading these right from the chat. Empathy, authenticity, compassion for self and others, curiosity, honesty, willingness, creativity, courage. I mean, do you feel how we're inspiring each other now? Brave, beautiful, seeing the beauty in others, caring for the environment, inclusion, trustworthiness, pursuit of justice. Oh yeah, thanks, Sandy. All right. Family, respecting others, being of service, and someone else wrote service right after that. Joy, caring about others, knowledge, seeking truths, desire for justice, laughter, empathy, integrity. Beautiful, beautiful. So we inspire each other not only when we share what our values are, but when we live them out in the world. It is one of those pay it forward moments. Playfulness, love, radiance. They're still bringing them in. Good. So if I don't get to read them all, keep putting them in there. Loving to learn. Branches. Our branches are what we're reaching for. So on the branches of your tree, I invite you to write down your hopes, your dreams, your wishes. What is it that you want to create more space for in your life? Right? Maybe it's time for spiritual reflection through journaling or meditating. Maybe you want more space for your creative projects, making music or writing poetry or painting. Maybe you want to dance more, right? Maybe it's focusing on, again, like some of those things that you'd like to bring back to the ground of like developing more healthy eating or exercise. What would help you feel more fulfilled in your life? Yeah. Oops, I'm hitting the wrong button there. I thought I'm scrolling the chat and I'm scrolling my slide. All right. So, yeah. So exploring what's in your branches. And again, you're welcome to use the chat here. And it's tender, right? Sometimes those branches are, I don't know what I'm reaching for because it's new and it's scary. I'm trying to figure out how to live and go on without my beloved partner, right? That is so real. That's so big. I'm reaching for more connection and more co-regulation and consciousness. I'm reaching for real love and affection. And I think one of the things about reaching is that it's profoundly vulnerable. It's profoundly vulnerable to reach because we don't know if we're going to be met in that reach. And yet it is the very act of the bravery and the authenticity and the vulnerability. It's connected so much to what you're writing in the chat here. Security and connections and joy, making and creating. Right? Yeah. right? And John, you're getting some love in this chat, right? So just feeling that you've got, like just even when you write in the chat, it's an act of reaching, especially when we use it to share those vulnerable experiences. So seeking companionship, community, belonging, connecting to my body and being okay with physical pleasure, self-healing and self-acceptance. So I'll invite you to tune into the leaves of your tree that represent that which helps you gather light to yourself. Maybe it's a supportive presence or person in your life, a pet, family member, a place. So our leaves, if you think about it, they're gathering sunlight, right? So we want to constantly recognize that we're going to draw nourishment from the ground and we're going to draw nourishment from above. Allowing myself to really be loved. Yeah. And, I wouldn't get too caught up in the distinction of the leaves and the ground and the roots. Just let it be messy, right? It's partially why you don't have a tree template here. Let your tree be as messy as it needs to be, because boy, isn't life messy. So, the flowers and seeds. Right. So if we go back here, right, like it's all scribbled in there, but our flowers and seeds, they are going to represent what it is that you want to leave behind. So if you begin to draw the flowers and seeds at the end of your branches, you can write down anything that you would like to pass on. If you think about those flowers and the seeds and the fruits that fall back to the ground, they're going to generate what's going to grow next. Right? These are our gifts to the world, right? So I see in the chat, I'm invulnerable. Who will meet me there? Someone says, how? How do we do that, right? But I think we're here together learning. So I'm going to invite you to just take a moment. If you're still adding into your tree, you can honestly do that for the rest of your life. It's an ongoing journey that we'll all be, continuing to create. But if you're ready, if it feels okay, I'm going to invite you to take a moment and just tune in back into your internal experience, mind and body, emotions and breath, quality of your energy. We might have stirred some things up, and taking a moment just to catch up with yourself. And in that mindful pause, just taking a moment to know that your body is a very key element to how. I love that that was really the last thing I read in the chat right before the how. Right. So right now, the how is going to be really coming inward, maybe tuning into your own body and really just seeing if there's any one area of your body that in this moment feels like something you could turn toward that feels okay enough. And that might be the tip of your nose or your fingertips or your hair, because sometimes since the body keeps the score, it holds all of the tension and the pain, right? Turning towards the body can be very vulnerable. So the how might be just there one sensation, and it might be just the breath moving at the tip of the nose. It might be feeling yourself just off the body if tuning into the physical body feels like it's too much. So finding how relating to your body feels accessible in this moment. And maybe we'll kind of deepen a little bit from here into an exploration of embodiment in relationship to just one area of tenderness, right? So I'll guide you through a little bit of that how. And I won't go into all of this just for sake of time, but I just want to name that inside of the post-traumatic growth guidebook, I offer up a model of embodiment and trauma treatment. And it's about connecting to resources, tuning in wise time and pace to areas where your body holds tension or pain or memory of trauma. Allowing yourself to really reclaim a sense of freedom or possibility through movement, letting something go, whether that's emotion or just releasing through a little bit of shaking, and finding a new felt sense of freedom. So I want to just guide you through just a mini experience here. And in this mindful pause, as you tune into your own body, perhaps, and only if it feels okay for you right now, just notice if there's just one area of sensation that stands in between you feeling okay right now, you feeling fine. And there might be a list of 15 things that stand between you and feeling fine right now. And just choose one, and maybe just choose one that doesn't feel too overwhelming. And I'd love for you to just observe the felt sense of that one area of distress, that one area of tenderness, the impact of what we're going through or something you've been through. And as you tune into just that one area, that one somatic experience, is there a word or a phrase that matches that felt sense? And it doesn't have to be logical, right? It could just be a color or an image or a sound. Or maybe it's just tight or stuck. And it's up to you if you want to put your word in the chat. Sometimes it's powerful to write it down. And when you hone in on that word, right? Grown, clenched, contracted, rock, injured, fear, or it might be yearning, cloudy, cage, right? And perhaps you hear me reading your word. Just notice if it resonates. You can say your word out loud to yourself or in your own mind, or maybe you hear me name it. Does it resonate with the feeling? And if not, you can refine it. Betrayal, constricted, sad, tight, constricted again, heavy, soreness, forgotten. I feel that one, that resonates in my heart. Trapped, emptiness. I feel you. Yeah, scary. Surcharge. Molasses. Fireworks in face. Woo. Worry, insecure, trapped, helpless, invisible. Invisible. I want to say that again because I think there's something powerful about that one. Invisible. Tension, burning, neglected, burnt out, burnout, rejected, helpless, abandoned. Right? It's powerful to give these voice, forgotten, unwanted, loss, alone, misunderstood, denied, hide pain. And once we've identified this, I'd like to invite you to take a moment. So if they're still coming into the chat, I'll come back to them, but I'm going to guide us into the next step. I'd like you to take a moment and just explore your relationship around whatever that word was, whatever that word is, whatever that felt sense is. What are the thoughts and beliefs that circulate it? What are the emotions connected to the felt sense? What's the energy in your body around it? How does your breath shape around it? And as you continue to notice your body now, also be curious. What is the most important part of this sensation? And I invite you, Rather than trying to disperse it or make it go away, actually go toward it. Again, you can choose to the degree that you do so, but if you contract around the feeling, get to know it, amplify it, let it get just a little bigger. It's a way of communicating back between brain and body, body and brain. I'm on to you. I know you're there. I've given you a word. I'm tuning in. I'm breathing into you. I'm contracting. You can bring your hands over it if you want. Right? What is this sensation holding for you? What does it want you to know? What does this feeling need? What actions need to happen in order for this feeling to resolve? And continue to just see how it feels to just maybe gently place your hands over and breathe into the sensation. Are there any movements that would help you respond to this sensation? And just allowing yourself for just a few moments to be guided. And I'm going to stay seated. You are welcome to stand up and move, whatever is going to support you. And this movement is guided by the sensation. So the sensation has intelligence. All right, I'm going to read the last question. I'm going to take down the screen share for a moment, but just to check in, is there anything that's needed by this sensation that needs repair, right? Is there a memory where you needed to protect yourself, where you needed to feel protected, where you needed to set a boundary, where you needed to be seen or heard or nurtured? And how can you meet this need now? How can now be different from then? So I want you to stay with the wisdom of your sensations and just allow yourself to explore what needs to happen. Are there any movements, sounds, right? Imagination is a powerful tool. Who could help you be with this feeling, with this memory, with this image, with this sensation right now? Is there a loving companion, friend, pet, even an ancestor, right? Who could you imagine around you that could help you hold this? And really tuning in to here we are, over 150 people tuning in together to that sense of tenderness and also that sense of what could we tap into or bring in that could help us heal. That's powerful. I see the photo. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. And if at any point it feels like it's too much, then I want you to really tap back in, use your external senses, find something to look at or a face to find inside of our, our shared community that helps you feel more connected right now. Because I can see you and I know there's tenderness in our shared space, right? You're not alone with it. Yeah. One person writes in, talking to and soothing my inner child is an element of this healing, this repair. And I think that's a beautiful, beautiful one. Sometimes I refer to it as my superpower, right? That capacity to really hold the most vulnerable parts with that love and that compassion. And, your dog, your spouse, right? You can certainly put in what helps you feel nourished. Right, to put that right in here into our chat. Yeah. I can really just feel how devoted you are to your own process. It's powerful. And I'm going to offer a very key skill. It comes from somatic experiencing, and it also is something that we talk about within. I trained at Naropa, which is a Buddhist-based school, but it's something called touch and go, which is that you can touch into the tenderness, and then we need to take breaks, right? We need to actually lean in and allow ourselves to trust that there's an enoughness, right? So I want you to take a moment and actually just allow yourself to tap into something very, very much nourishing and resourcing. Like that we can go toward the pain and toward the pain and toward the pain, but we actually need to expand that lens back out so that the pain doesn't become everything that we see. So as we expand that lens out, yeah, thanks. I see you're nodding. Yeah. Right. Just allowing yourself to really feel that there is something, whether that's at a spiritual level, whether that's within, a personal resource or practice, just tapping into something larger that can help you hold this. And I'll read a few of these. The calendula flowers. Forgiving myself for choices that I made not knowing. My internal wise woman warrior. The warm purring cat in my lap through this entire presentation. Yeah. So I'm going to pull up the slide just for one last little piece here, and then I want to just do some integration and closure for today. I'm going to read this one. Letting it be okay that I am human, knowing when to go deep into the emotions and when to go away and seek play and lightness. It's sometimes a tough call. It's so true. So here's the piece that I'll close our slides with for today. And I just wanted to pull this one back up. I'd love for you to take a moment and bring this insight into action. So the final stage, I've been walking you through something that Eugene Gendlin calls focusing. It's a beautiful, beautiful model of healing. And Eugene Gendlin's book is worth having. It's a short little read, and it's a beautiful guidance. The sixth stage of what I just walked you through, the final stage of it is noticing anything that shifted. So tap back in, just notice. It might be really subtle. And sometimes when we tap into that contraction, it can feel like, oh my gosh, it got worse, it got worse. So trust Eugene Gendlin's focusing, Annette, and maybe one of either Brad or Andy can write that in there, or Dara, you can write focusing is the name of the book. So take the time to notice even the tiniest little shift. Right? Even if the contraction got louder, I actually want you to trust your process, because something bubbled to the surface for your awareness. And you might need to, if it feels incomplete, make a commitment to yourself that you will come back to this right time, right place. But for now, I would love for you to express appreciation for your body and your mind for holding this for you. So allowing yourself to savor and integrate anything that fed you, that nourished you. I'm going to just share with you a resource that you can find within the Post-Traumatic Growth Guidebook, which is the guidance that's in there that will allow you to write your own hero or heroine's journey. And the book guides you to explore those events in your life that maybe served to enter that call into a hero's journey, to notice any desire to reject that call in your own life, the resources that have helped you face the challenge, and any additional resources that you need to help navigate the challenge. You'll be guided in the book to become more aware of strengths that you've discovered as a result of challenge or trauma. And you can then start to hone in on any positive changes in your sense of self, work, or relationships as a result of those, of how you've worked through it, right? Of what you've done with it. How has adversity influenced your sense of purpose? And what gifts will you share with the world as a result of the difficult experiences in your life? And you will find that in this one in the center, the one with the flower, but there's lots of resources out there on trauma recovery. And it's really my joy to create those resources and support you. So that is what I have for you today. There's a lot in there. And I really just want to hone in on our shared gallery view, as one of you put in the chat, that was your takeaway from tonight, of that positive savoring experience.
Thank you, Arielle, Dr. Schwartz, for being with us today. If in the spirit of gratitude, I would invite everyone. We've been using the chat in such a wonderful way during the session. If you wouldn't mind sharing whatever gratitude you have for Dr. Schwartz for being here with us today. I know it was just very inspiring, and it's so aligned with the world that I think we want to create, that we could envision. And I think, did you guys all make these trees? I mean, because I think what I took away from this exercise personally is there's this concept that we talked about feeling invisible. That came up, Dr. Schwartz, you emphasized that, and the sense of aloneness that we feel. And when we go through something hard, whether it's a death or a trauma or any kind of adversity, it just tends to make us feel like that's happening to us. But we all have this tree that now we've drawn, and we all now we have a little forest. And so to feel like we're part of a forest, I know that when I put sad in the chat, that's what came up for me. But having this made me think, wow, I know there's other people here that are sad. And then recognizing that that's just a human part of, adversity is part of all of our lives. And though our culture tries to separate us out from that truth, and we have to hide it so deeply inside of ourselves, being able to see it as part of our existence, and then how to work with it to become a hero, as you described, in our own life, it just gives us so much strength. And so to have you guide us through that today has been just truly terrific. So I see this wonderful chat flowing with immense gratitude. And to your point about taking actions, part of this work that we're doing at Reimagine through this entire experience, when I say we're not alone, right now at Reimagine, there's hundreds and hundreds of events taking place like this, spaces that are being created by people like you for their community, for your community. And we show up together and we create that forest. And what we're asking people to do is to think about how can we actually channel our grief into this type of action and growth. And is there any one concrete action, one small, sweet step, even if that step is doing nothing? Because we can't really do anything without taking some kind of action. And sometimes doing nothing is exactly what we need. But I want to invite us, Andy can drop a little link in the chat. You want maybe bookmark that link. It's a little survey for you to share one concrete action that you want to commit to. And then in a couple weeks, we will email you back with what you shared with us, and just as a check-in and a reminder for you to see what you were committing to in this day, and to see if where you're at with that, and not to make you feel bad or pressured, but to invite you to continue to reflect on where you've gone from today forward and where you might go at that day. So Andy, if you drop that in the chat, would be wonderful. And if you guys see that there, let me see if I see that little chat thing popping up. Oh, perfect. Yeah, so save that link, put it in your browser, and I'll invite you to fill that out. That would be terrific. Andy, I also want to invite you in, my colleague Andy Engel, who's going to share a little bit more about the rest of this series that we have. This was just part one of a 5-part series. And if the rest of the series is as fantastic as today, I think every session will be totally worthwhile. So Andy, do you want to share a little bit more about what's next in the Phoenix Rising?
Sure. Thanks, Brad. And thank you, Dr. Schwartz. This was so healing, so beautiful. Monday, join us again at the next Phoenix Rising. That's November 15th. We will be having 3 guests, all artists, all based in Baltimore, talking about how they transformed their grief and losses and into something beautiful and creative. Also, we have a new program that is in conjunction with Phoenix Rising. It is grief and growth community gatherings. Those are spaces for us to hold space for one another. And this will involve breakout groups. So join us for that. That's going to start on November 19th. And that's it, Brett.
Fabulous, Andy. Thank you so much. And want to thank really all of you for being here with us today. You know, you're what make this community possible. Showing up here and contributing. The chat today was just so wonderful to see such vulnerability. And just again, thank you to Dr. Schwartz. We are really making this a focus of our organization in an ongoing way, because the ideas that Dr. Schwartz shared with us today are things that we have seen time and time again, unbeknownst to us when we started hosting events around grief and loss, to see the beauty of the human spirit in the face of what's hard. It's just like, wow, there's something here. It's something about being in community to explore this. And we shared that today in your presentation, Dr. Schwartz. So thank you. Thanks to everyone. And like we do at all of our Reimagine events, or we're starting to do, it feels like, you know, we have recognized the one word that I know you know that sounds good on Zoom when we unmute ourselves. And if we could all just open our vocal cords together and share the word love in some kind of note that feels right to you, we will hear something that sounds like some sort of love chorus, better than most songs on the radio. I can assure you that. So let's end with that today, and I'll let you go. But count of three, we will all say the word love if we get unmuted. 3, 2, unmute yourselves for love. We got to get the unmutedness, Andy.
So sorry, I don't know how to unmute everybody.
Oh my word. Well, that would really crush it'll be an adversity that we will overcome through love. I guarantee it. Love will find a way. Let's see if I can do it, because that is a nice part. Are you still struggling?
It's up to you if you'd like to do it.
Oh, I would love to do it. Do I have to do it?
Yes, as I said, I don't know how to unmute everybody.
Oh.
I can mute all, but I can't unmute all.
Well, let's see.
Oh, no, it just says allow participants to unmute themselves. I think I just clicked it. I think everyone can unmute themselves now.
All right, let's hear love. I knew love would win.
Love. Love you.
Love.